Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
Hi, I'm Jody Smits-Anderson. I'm really excited to be a co-host for Subject to Change Sustainability. And I am a director of sustainability and am fascinated by what nature can teach us. My hero, of course, I didn't prepare this in advance, but I will say right now that I'm looking for kindness in the world. So I would say that Mr. Rogers is my hero right now. And Kita wants me to say Kita, but I'm not going to say Kita. I'll say that later.
Today we're talking about education.
Actually, Lauren, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Lauren Stanek. I too am a co-host on Subject to Change Sustainability and also an interior designer that I like to think specializes in sustainable approaches for human and environmental health and well-being. And my hero right now, gosh, Jody, that was a super good one. And outside the box thinking, I'm going to say that my hero right now is, this is going to be a rare one for me. I'm going to say the two Republicans sitting on the January 6th commission who are apparently two of the only people in the world left that can tell the truth.
Exceptional. All right, who wants to go next?
Welcome to Seri Lonberg.
I'll go.
All right, good.
My name is Seri Lonberg, and yeah, thank you all for having me. And I'll be a teacher. I'm going to teachers college in the fall to get my earth science teaching degree. And my hero is the late Dr. Lloyd Hamilton. He was a doctor in my town. He was retired in his mid-90s, and he ran a free clinic. And he helped so many people in my neighborhood, even though he was retired, and he was so passionate about his work. And he came in every single day, helping people in the community. So I just admire his passion and his hard work and his sense of humor through everything.
That's awesome. That's amazing. What can I ask what community that is?
I was in Nyack, New York.
Awesome.
Yep, Rockland County, if you'll know where that is.
Joining us also is Kita Murray.
Kita Murray. I'm a 11th grade history teacher in Amsterdam, New York. I've been teaching history for 20-something years now. Math not my strong suit. And since as of March 22nd, I am a kidney transplant recipient. So it's kind of nice to not feel terrible all the time. And my two, because I can't do anything halves, it would have to be Mother Teresa because of her compassion and kindness, and either Teddy or Franklin D. Roosevelt, or both of them, because I love my progressives.
And anchoring is Erik Smits.
Yeah, so you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Erik. I'm a student at Pratt in Brooklyn for photography. Going back this fall, took a leave of absence in the spring. And my hero, I'd have to say, is probably Peter McKinnon, a pretty big photography YouTuber now, that a couple years ago got me back into the hobby just because he was so energetic and passionate about it, and I don't know, was different than anybody else I'd seen in the field. So
Excellent. And I'm going to throw in a disclaimer. I met Seri at an event via Zoom about Solve Climate 2030. So we have a very short connection. Kita has been a dear friend of mine since college, which means it's a very long connection. And
don't do that math.
I'm not going to do that. And Erik is my son. They've never been reluctant to speak their minds. So I'm just reiterating that you can say whatever you like. This is just whatever comes up, comes up. So that's great. I'm so glad you guys are all here.
Let's kick it off with buildings.
We've had an evolution of conversations that's taken place, and we come at sustainability from all different directions. Let's start with what's going well. Let's focus on the positive. What's sustainable in education that's positive today? Who wants to go first?
It's a really hard question.
I know it is, but I think it's such a big topic that there's a lot of different answers.
And one of the things that occurs to me that when you spoke is you've had a lot of challenges with the health of your building and how your building doesn't support education very well.
So how can we better support you from a built environment standpoint? What do you need for improvement?
More windows in more buildings and regular cleaning of air ducts. The number of people I work with that have ended up with asthma and other breathing issues just from being in the building.
Yeah, it's significant.
I'll talk about my high school. That's only like 2 blocks from our house. And recently they went through a bunch of plans to try and improve the building or improve the school as a whole. And the solution ended up being to kind of just add on a whole bunch of new elements to the building. So we have like a whole new wing, and they just finished the new pool and everything. And the old building that's been there forever is still as terrible as it's ever been. There are leaks in the roof in half the classrooms. There are garbage cans as buckets in the hallways. The air is terrible. Half the classrooms are freezing cold, and half of them are ridiculously hot with no windows. You kind of learn certain things, like on the Mondays, the building's not going to be warm because they haven't had the heat running through the weekend. But then by the time you get to Wednesday, they've had that heat pumping straight for 2 days. And so it's the hottest it's going to be all week. And then you got to make sure that the next day you're back to lighter clothing. And the new building, while it improved on that a little bit, they still haven't done any work to the old building. There's still leaks, and that building is used for at least half the classes still, and they just haven't done any work on it. So I think that's one of the bigger problems, is just trying to force new stuff, entirely new stuff, rather than repair the old, and not even repair it to make it the end all be all, but just repair it so that it's still usable in the meantime. And it would have taken a much smaller budget.
I'll take a different approach to the question with schools. One, they could be excellent labs for sustainability, and as far as I know, with the DOE in New York, does have like a sustainability office, but it is small, but it is there, and I think it was under Bloomberg that required every school to have a sustainability coordinator, right? And this is more so in the city. And I'm like, oh, that's excellent. But the more I dive into it, the more I see that, well, one, they're unpaid positions, so it's volunteer, which doesn't really make it sustainable in itself, because it's hard to, someone's gonna have to have a lot of passion to do that, and teachers already have so much to do. To be optimistic, at least, like, there is that the conversation, the discourse, that we do need it, but I think there's a lot more action, and we're gonna need the government to put more of a budget as well.
Just to recap, it sounds like the physical environment isn't getting the investment it needs. And we all know that the physical place where you're learning has a huge impact on your cognitive function and also on your willingness to learn. If you're happy, you're able to learn better. If you have good daylight, you can actually test better. And good air quality means that you have much better cognitive function. That's been proven. Then additionally, it sounds like sustainability, at least in the city, has been given a nod, but not the support it needs to actually kind of systemically exist.
And what are the connections we need to make?
Maybe that you've had a revelation over the last 18 months with COVID. Is something changing, or do you want something to change?
I think that over COVID, because I wasn't in school, but I was just tutoring here and there, and watching students, and I think the need for purposeful education, what they're learning, is going to contribute to them being able to help themselves, their families, and their community. When I was tutoring, I found that when I made that connection to their math homework or something, English or history, that was really a motivating, like that one little motivating factor is what helped learn the content.
So to add, I guess, to kind of take that thought a step further, when you're talking about, you were able to help people find a connection. and then help them kind of learn through the curriculum. Here in the city of Syracuse, I've been really impressed to learn that our curriculum for students is maybe a little bit different. Like you can actually apply to get into certain schools that have different tracks of learning. So
Albany High, for all its faults, does have like the largest course selection in the tri-state area or something. We had a bunch of class options, and with the Brooklyn building, as it was called, they had a bunch of extra courses like automotive work, nursing, baking. That Brooklyn building was like 3 blocks away. And so we had a very inefficient system with walking between classes, but you didn't have enough time, so you were late to your next class. And if you took the bus was longer than walking. But they finally decided to move that whole building onto the same campus area as the rest of the high school.
Should we re-explore craft-based learning?
Talking about hands-on activities and like craft-based learning, I think that's coming back into curriculums more and more. And until now, we've always treated it kind of as separate. Like you went into a vocational school or a hands-on school versus, theoretical education and head learning. What's it like in Amsterdam, Kita? Is there a mix?
The high school, it has BOCES, but that's in the next town over. So kids lose like at least one full class period going and one full class period coming back.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of tailoring to meet the needs unless the kid has an IEP. And then, we do what we legally have to.
What's an IEP? Individual.
Oh, sorry. Individualized education plan.
Got
for
it.
kids with learning disabilities, especially.
Got it.
Okay. In Ireland, what they do the last year, as the 4 semesters are broken up into essentially internships. So you say what you think you might be interested in, and they find you a position in different businesses, so you can see what it's like to really do that kind of job every day.
That's cool.
So, and I would love to see something like that, because college is not for everybody, and nor should it be.
And college just is not working.
The world of the last 30 years has been built around, you get a college education because that's your leg up. Do you guys think that that's still true? Do you think that that's changing?
The state of New York has decided that everyone should go to college, so everyone takes the Regents to get them ready for college. Most of my kids can't pass the Regents, but they're phenomenally good at other things.
Right. Seri, what do you think of that as you head into an educational profession?
No, I don't think that the 4-year college plan is, well, clearly it's not working, because a lot of, not just even in debt, just a lot of people drop out. It doesn't fit everyone's learning style. Never can afford it. People have needs of their own back home that they can't, commit to going to college for 4 years. So there has to be other possibilities to prepare them for the future, prepare them to, be engaged citizens in their communities, to take care of the future. That's why I'm going into K through 12 schooling, because public schooling, because that is an opportunity to reach, everybody. I have a friend who wants to open a restaurant. That's his it's his passion. We're chatting yesterday about it, and he was talking, he works at a restaurant now, and he was talking about how much they waste, how many cups they waste, how many plastic cups, maybe like 1,000, on the weekend. It's a pretty big bar. But sustainability is just not on the mind. And this is with a lot of, that it was never taught, the concept of sustainability of, hey, how is that, how is that impacting the environment? How is that, there's other components to sustainability, economics and social, but it's just not on the front of anybody's mind. So I hope to instill that in K through 12, so that wherever they go to, they could, be creative inventors and help their communities.
Let's discuss self-crafted curriculum.
And regarding college and how that's working, from my understanding, things used to be a little bit that you went to college to learn, and learn these tasks that you would need, and then you'd be better off afterwards. And right now, college is more of proof that you know the things. Even if college helps you learn some stuff, you need to learn so much more on your own. The average person now is miles smarter than even 20 years ago. At least for me, like, I'm going to college to get a certificate to prove I know how to do these things, and that's the only reason, because I fully think I could learn it better on my own, but then I have no proof.
So is there more validity in education, higher education, moving forward, if you can craft your own curriculum? And how can that flexibility be created? And how can it be still proven with a certificate? And who's the ultimate judge of those things? Shouldn't we be the ultimate judge of our capabilities?
So I'm a business owner, right? And I'm not only a business owner, I'm a very small business owner. A lot of times it's like me and one other person. So
I'm not talking about height, people, although height is an issue.
but it's one of those things where I hear what you guys are saying, and there's a part of my brain that totally agrees with all of it. And then I think about the risk as myself as an extremely small business owner. I'm like, ooh, but I still want that proof. I still want some sort of proof.
Learning doesn't happen because you're sitting out of college paying an exorbitant amount of money for the classes.
True. That's also
Yeah.
true.
I at least have the advantage of being able to like show a portfolio of my work as
Right.
a photographer and use that. But with the digital world the way it is, a lot of times there's this expectation that I can kind of do something and show the work immediately after, and people expect a very fast turnaround, and that's the proof in a lot of circumstances. Like, come show me your skills and I'll hire you.
And that's
And
true.
there's a gap in understanding that, yeah, I can show up and I can take the picture and you can see the picture 1 second later. It takes me 2 weeks to make that picture how it looks, how you want it.
But you make a good point. Actually, so you've got me thinking more creatively by this discussion. So well done, all of you. So I'm thinking, one of my very first jobs out of college, I had to go in, it was just a CAD drafting position. I had to go in and physically take a test. I hear what you're saying. You can't necessarily do the same thing, because you'll take an image and then you'll take 2 weeks to manipulate it to be the ultimate goal. But we could have a very good conversation about, okay, here's a project challenge. How would you approach it, and how would you get from point A to point B? And then you're telling me how makes me know you know how to do it.
Yeah.
And other ways of self-learning.
A lot of new thing like Google career certificates is the big name that comes to my mind right now. But I know there are a lot of other companies doing really good work about kind of giving that certificate and giving that proof. And a lot of these companies are working with a different approach where it's really more test based, and it's, if you do know this stuff, then we don't need to teach it to you. And so it can be faster, it can take longer, it just depends on the knowledge you actually have, and then you end up with something you can go and show to somebody at the end, which is really good. However, right now those programs only exist for, coding or creating a website. They don't exist for baking. Like, there's how do you get it for something like that?
And the Flippin Regents exams.
If it's okay, I want to bring this back to the teaching side of things, and there are many people who could be self-directed, self-motivated learners, and there are a lot of people who are not capable of doing that. It's like, what do you see the role of a teacher?
It's hard because it's changing. It used to be the teacher was the sage on the stage. I talked, you learned. But that's not necessarily the way things are. That's not the way people learn. It's certainly not all subjects or for all people learn that way. So there's a lot of emphasis on getting the kids involved, but teenagers don't care about anything except themselves and other teenagers. And that's not a slam. That's just a statement of facts. Their whole world becomes about their peer group, and they don't care who won the Peloponnesian War. Nowadays, I look at things, and I'm fascinated by the ancient things we find. And students have said to me, years after they graduated, this is so cool. I wish I'd paid more attention in high school. So I think some of it comes down to what we're teaching when, and especially in New York with those Flippin Regents exams, we're teaching to the test, whether we want to or not. I have to teach to what somebody I don't know has decided is the important piece of American history. And I don't like teaching factoid. I'm not teaching them to go on Jeopardy. I'm trying to teach them patterns and understand it.
And as a student, I'll add in teaching for the Regents also means teaching how to avoid trick questions and how to, it's as much about the content and the facts as it is about showing those facts in a way that the Regents will accept.
Is school in a bubble?
How has social media in the recent history also impacted your teaching?
Well, it's hard to keep the kids on task because they're always texting, and they're texting their parents half the time. It's like, why are their parents texting them? Or
I don't think social media is going anywhere unless, I just in the near future, and it's changing so rapidly that it needs to be incorporated into teaching. Is my opinion. We can't separate. I think schools are so separated, in my opinion, from communities, and it's like a bubble that we need to just go back and how can we relate school more to the community? How can we relate it more to the world, the present, and the future? How can we utilize the past? I love, history too. Well, I haven't started teacher training. I'm very curious to how it's going to go and how, if we are going to be talking about, TikTok and what students' lives are like now and how it's going to relate to the classroom. I'm really curious. Is there going to, are we finally going to agree? Like, what is the point of public education? I think once we could answer that question, and what skills do we need students to learn in the 21st century and for the future? Because that's rapidly changed as well.
Pick one skill.
Pick one. What is the one skill that should be part of a high school or college education?
There's a lot. The critical thinking, I think communication, collaboration is huge. Learning how to be great communicators, great listeners.
Very cool.
Collaborators.
Yeah, they need to be learned to be good listeners, because everybody wants to talk about themselves and thinks that their opinions count for more than anything. And so I blame the internet a little bit, because with the ability to comment on everything you see, people think that other people want to hear their comments on everything. And that's just not true. So we need to teach them to be good communicators, good listeners.
I think there needs to be a lot more teaching about the present world. We have a lot of teaching about history and a lot of teaching about what's going on directly in the lives of the kids learning. But there's so much going on in this world every single day, and that's it goes by everybody. It's the kids learning at Albany High are spending every day thinking about math and history and English and blah blah blah, and then after they leave school they're thinking about Albany. But there's no thought about the fact that we're going to space right now, like every other day that's happening. And learning about all this stuff that's presently changing so rapidly, just hitting the tip of the iceberg with that. And I think even that'll spark more curiosity to be able to go learn about these things themselves. And I do appreciate that with Instagram and TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. A lot of that news is more in their face because people don't check the news anymore. But thankfully, with social media, the news is incorporated in a little bit, and so they're seeing little bits and pieces throughout the day. But it's just the really big headlines. So I think a lot of the present stuff goes missed, and so current events need to be a little bit more stressed.
Sidetracked by Oxford commas.
One of the things that I've noticed in my professional realm is that we've all been trained to only do things we know we can succeed at.
Mm.
So I wish that education in high school and college focused more on the incredible benefit of learning from mistakes and from kind of iterative learning a little bit and then deciding what the next step of learning is. Because I think sometimes when you're handed a whole curriculum, there's no curiosity, there's no exploration. It's just a process that's set. And life is not like that. I am not where I thought I would be, but I'm where I'm supposed to be because each step I took taught me the next step to take. And I think that that's missing from education, or at least it was missing from my education.
Well, and you make a really great point. I mean, how often, if you've made a mistake and you've learned from it, have you ever made that same mistake again?
Okay, once or twice I have. I would say, the non-alcoholic beer, but I would say that drinking too much has happened more than once.
Okay.
But never in the same way.
That was point taken. But on a we'll say work-based mistake, for example, like something that you failed and then ultimately learned.
Yeah.
Although I will say the one thing that I still, to up your drinking thing, I still can't figure out how to use commas. So commas and me are, unless it's a list or coming after dear so-and-so, I have no idea where they go.
Oxford comma is your friend.
Yeah, Oxford commas. Love them.
Oh, I just learned about Oxford commas about 6 months ago.
Luckily, no one on here is an English teacher. So
No, but my mom is an English major, so you'd think I would know where commas go.
Counting newts for inspiration.
in my thinking of you, Seri, being an outdoor educator, I think the other thing that we tend to do is we think that education has to happen in the classroom.
Oh, yeah, enough of it.
And seriously, I have learned very little in a classroom and much more doing other things.
Mhm.
I was telling Erik about a course in college that was a 2-week intensive course where I was doing freshwater ecology studies, and we were in Bolton Landing for 2 weeks snorkeling and counting newts. And that 2 weeks I did a 3-credit course, and it was the most memorable course of almost my entire college career. It had nothing to do with my major.
Mm-hmm.
It really inspired me because I was in nature intensively
That's
with
cool.
people forging my own path,
I would think that Erik's curriculum is also going to be interesting because having known quite a few photography majors in my day, you spend a lot of your time like out in the field, whatever that field is. So, I mean, just by being in different locations, I've got to imagine you're going to come across a lot of people, places, and things that point you to additional points of interest.
I hope so. Unfortunately, with the program that I'm currently going through, there's a lot of base information that is classroom learning in fields not related to my own. And it's about 1.5 to 2 years of work before I get to the stuff that's remotely related to what I'm doing. But at that point, I believe there is a lot of field work that I'm looking forward to.
Remote learning.
Kita, you took this last year fully off? I don't even remember.
I was there for the first quarter remotely, and then after that, they wanted me to come back in the building, and I said, no, COVID will kill me. And for me, it was a little bit easier because there's a lot of reading involved in history. There's a lot of looking at graphs and maps. So that was semi-easy to translate into like Google Docs and online and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I always give the kids a chance to redo things because my goal is for them to learn, not pass a test.
My art history class was 3 times better online. It was a lot easier to receive the information and work on my own time. Since the lectures were recorded, I didn't have to show up for class when the class was. I think the class span was a little bit shorter online than it was in person, according to my professor, because it was a lot easier to just get straight into the information without distractions of the class.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that.
It's been about staying afloat.
How do I want to ask this question? given that you're looking at doing such outdoors based teaching, hands-on teaching, do you think that there could have been more creative solutions to how kids learned during the past 18, 24 months at this point?
Yeah, I think the teachers like did their best with just staying afloat, and it was such a mess. I think it did give teachers more training, and there was more grants given on building outdoor spaces and
Yeah.
more outdoor gardens. And teachers were just, I think everyone is just trying to stay afloat and just try to get students into class. And I mean, it's going to be a mess. I'm going to be optimistic and say that we'll be more patient in these next years with students who fell behind. We'll focus a lot more on the socio-emotional needs of students to normal, especially with the huge gap, the student achievement gap, the opportunity gap that was shown to light. And so someone missing their whole year of third grade, learning how to write, it's just been taken away, and that's gonna trickle for for many years. So this is how we evaluate students achievement is going to have to be rewritten, which is also exciting because clearly there's also a lot of issues. So this is going to be exciting as well for education.
Current events, Simone Biles.
Current event, Simone Biles stepping down from multiple events, clear, and very proudly stating, I think it's better that I take care of my mental health.
Yeah, huge.
How do we think that starts to play into our education system as well?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, hopefully it will, right? So
No stigma to saying, I need a break from this, or this isn't working for me. And I mean, Erik, you left halfway through the semester, and that was a tough choice, but you weren't getting what you needed from the classes, and it was kind of pointless. But there were hoops that you had to jump through in order to prove that you couldn't complete it was just weird to me
Yeah. I had to have anxiety in order to be able to take a leave of absence during COVID from school.
yeah, I don't understand. Why can't you just leave?
No.
Nope.
Not
I did it.
Sacrificing the whole tuition. It really should have been during COVID. This sucks and is not working for me. I need to not take courses this semester. And they should have said, okay.
We can skip the spotlight.
If I could play devil's advocate for the mental health thing or taking breaks and all that, I think that we're in a really good spot for getting information out about the issues. However, there's a lot of it's being pushed very hard, and I want to take a moment to consider the people and the kids who see all the information and don't want to be that or don't want to do that. They're looking up to these people and looking up to the amount of social media awareness it's getting, and also the amount of pushback. It makes the mental health issue a lot bigger, which is good because people are more informed, but it also makes it a lot worse for a lot of people. If you're comfortable with how you are, you're trying to figure something out, it's like a huge spotlight just got shown on you. And personally, that's not something I want. I feel like my mental health is declining more because of the push on mental health right now. So
is there a way to do that would work better?
Yeah, it's just making it normal, making it part of everyday speech and everyday conversation. And this country, for whatever reason, is always looked down on people who seek help for their mental health. I don't need a psychiatrist. I'm not crazy. And if you broke your leg, you'd go to a doctor.
Yeah.
This is just a different kind of doctor for a different kind of break.
Right.
Exactly.
I know in Amsterdam we have every other week or so, we do kind of help make kids aware of how they're feeling about things and how to voice that, what to do with the energy that creates. I've also seen a bunch of articles where they're doing that with elementary kids. teaching them how, what emotions are and how you deal with them, and when you get mad and when you get sad or frightened. So kind of teaching them to read their own bodies. So I think we're going, but really, really slowly, like smaller than baby steps.
I agree with what Keto is saying, and the education I think is the key point about it. But there also needs to be, not every kid has a problem. Not you shouldn't be forced into thinking you have a mental illness, and when something does come up or if something is really wrong, you have to prove you have this mental illness. There are a lot of steps. There's a lot of attention that it gets personally, publicly, and so educating on what it is, but making sure everybody knows it's not something you have to have, or it's not something you necessarily will have to deal with. And then if and when it does come up, handling it like it's a normal thing and not a huge deal.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. And there's some things that tie into that. I think that, again, maybe we need to break down the walls of the school a little bit. Maybe that's part of it.
We need to start looking for the cause.
Seri, I think you were going to say something.
Seri's dying to say something, and I can't wait to hear it.
Every time you all say something like, oh yeah, I just sort of like spark something. But I also just think when we think about how we educate our youth moving forward is how do we address not just providing students counseling, because this is huge, but also what is causing so much anxiety, depression, and these illnesses in general, and how can we prevent them? What's causing them? Because it's huge in our culture as well. Like it's so like what is causing that, and how could we build a future where like with sustainability, the concept of sustainability, that we're not, we're building a better future for each other and for the people who come after this. So
you might have touched on it earlier too. You were talking about connection to community and how schools are a bubble and very separate. And we had this conversation in a previous interview with somebody who was talking about how the coursework that like if you could get students involved with planning a renewable energy program for their town and getting involved with their town, then they start to have a voice in the community. And if especially a teenager has a voice in the community, they feel more valid, they feel more connected, and that starts to heal that anxiety and that separateness. So I think all of it goes together, right? It's we were talking about connection and collaboration and active participatory learning.
It is.
And maybe all of those are parts and pieces of the same puzzle.
It is. And the evidence is out there, that integrating, environmental context, integrating the community into your coursework increases students' engagement, increases their enthusiasm, increases their grades, so so I think it's all correct. I think it just really needs to be prioritized and put into practice.
Climate news can be sad and depressing.
Just on the point I wanted to say about making mistakes that you mentioned before, I was advertising, remember our climate change workshop, with teachers so they could teach this in their classroom. And one teacher, I posted on Facebook, responded back, I don't want to teach this to my students because it's too sad and too depressing. Okay, so and I think a lot of this is approach that I've heard quite frequently, that this is like a gloomy topic.
Mm-hmm.
Sustainability doesn't have to be a gloomy topic. I think it's a very empowering topic because it shows you can be a change agent. These are the issues in your local and global, and this is how we can solve them. I think it's I think just the approach needs to be changed. And if you make a mistake, maybe you're writing to a senator and that bill doesn't get passed, hey, you learn from it.
Explore limitless learning.
Big part of it would be just incorporating solutions or kernels of solutions into the teaching. I know my environmental science teacher did that a lot, and I was very appreciative. And that kind of helps to handle the gloomy nature of it a little bit by showing that there is a way out of it. Even if the solutions aren't practical, they exist, they're possible. And so we just have to improve upon them and make them feasible, practical solutions. So it gives a little kernel of like, it is good.
Yeah, I like that because if you focus on the exploration and the learning from the mistakes and always reaching forward, uh, and solving for not to fix problems but to achieve better circumstances as a whole, then you're always forward looking as opposed to looking back and saying, oh, let's plug that hole in the dike, let's fix that little problem, let's do this, let's do that. Instead, it's saying, i want to I want my community to be healthier. There are 1,000 things that we can do to make our community healthier. It's limitless in its approaches that way, and I think that can be quite positive. And maybe that's a lesson for all of education. Again, instead of teaching a curriculum, and this is really hard, Kita, I don't mean to say that teaching sucks as a whole, but you've been put in a really bad position because you're it's because of regents, because of having to meet certain state requirements, because of having to deal with a school that doesn't support the learning of your students. All of these things come together, but if there can be
Yep.
a little bit of vision beyond the curriculum, maybe that's the tease to keep the students involved. And I'm saying this as a not teacher. So
And now Seri turns the tables.
Did you learn about sustainability in your education, like in school? Is what I was curious about, either K through 12 or college.
I did not. I learned about sustainability because why? I just doesn't make sense to me to I'm sorry, to I'm going to be blunt. It doesn't make sense to shit where you live. And that's what we keep doing. And it never has made sense to me. So I don't know. Lauren?
So I learned about it in college is when it was first brought to me. I was asked by my one of my major professors to join an independent study. And there were 7 of us, I think, that did this independent study. And we started looking at sustainability as it related to everything, but our coursework was really in the built environment. But there was kind of a very holistic approach of, okay, this is the one area that you work in, but there's this whole area that you live in, and how are we going to deal with this and this at the same time? How are we going to think about it locally and globally? So yeah, but it wasn't until my sophomore or junior year, and it was only because of this one teacher. It was not part of regular course curriculum. It was something that they were trying.
Do what I say, not what I do.
Is sustainability was it sustainability in the high school, Erik? Was it folded in anywhere?
Education about it was folded in a lot. It was brought up in a lot of my classes. People were very aware of it. Our AP environmental science class was very popular, and that taught a lot about sustainability. However, the only recycling bin in the whole school was locked in the faculty office, and teachers would I would try to recycle or try to get recycling bins in classrooms. They would be there for about a week and then move. Janitors didn't like it. And when I tried to, when we had like a big stack of papers or, big box of cardboard from a project in class, and I would try to recycle it, the teacher was like, no, just throw it in the trash. You don't want to waste class time to go to the office. So there was plenty of knowledge and awareness about it. There was just no action. There was nothing you could do to make anything better.
So there's talk about it, and there's, things we could be doing, but we're not doing any of them. So it's a do what I say, not what I do kind of situation.
Sustainability is really all these things.
Sustainability is not something separate from the world. It's not like a separate topic, just like the environment is not some separate topic of the world. It's everything. Sustainability is everything. It needs to be integrated, weaved into all subjects, all components of life. Otherwise, what are you teaching?
And I'm a big, what are the multi-solving. Like if we do something environmentally smart, it ends up doing 6 or 8 other things, and we should start to talk about all of those things all the time. Like I'm in my backyard and we hang our laundry out to dry, right? So so our laundry's there, right? Which is environmentally smart. We're not using our dryer. It makes the clothes last longer. They smell better. The stains come out better when they're in the sun. And you know, so you just always talk about that other stuff. It's easier to fold. Like, and I figure if we start to talk like that, it's not just an environmental strategy, it's an all these things strategy, then maybe it'll start to normalize it, almost like mental health can be normalized just by talking about all the aspects of it.
The plan and everything around it needs to be well thought out, though. I'm seeing a lot of trying to jump into sustainability because it's a buzzword, and jump into it because, you know, it's good for marketing, and have it just turn out very terribly.
What happened to the washable trays?
I'm clearly out of touch. What happened to just like the regular reusable washable trays? Why did they go to something disposable?
There were too many fights and injuries, and after like the 5th or 6th hospital call, you know, you kind of gotta switch to something. Yeah, people would, and that's also why there was a switch from reusable utensils.
But apparently, the question about what people need to learn at school, my answer has just been defined for me, and it's basically like, I don't know, like just being congenial to other humans. Not even congenial, just not aggressive. Like, can we just not be aggressive? Can we just respect each other's boundaries?
And again, I'm not saying it's the full solution, but part of that solution is understanding that it doesn't always have to be in a classroom. You don't have to contain the very active, very fluid, very, very emotionally charged environment of teenagers in little rooms with barely any windows and no access to nature to learn something that they have no interest in learning. We need to figure all that part out and support the active nature of teenagers in the learning.
Yeah.
A final word on advocacy.
There's a particular bill I'm interested in, Senate Bill 3299. This is Senator Parker. And it does require the Department of Education to establish an environmental sustainability program in K-12 schools. It's a very flexible bill, which is very important when you're teaching sustainability, because, you know, you have to give the local context and into consideration and the culture of the school. And the Senate bill, I think, allows that. And I think with a bill such as this, and just, we might have the opportunity, you know, if it passes, to get more funding and to take this sustainable education to the next level and to give it the seriousness it needs. Just check it out and let me know what you think. And
absolutely
change how teachers are taught too.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really good.
And that's a wrap. Thank you.
Yeah.
This was an awesome conversation, and I really appreciate it. I think that you guys expanded my mind during it, which is, you know, the one goal that I hope to take away from all of these conversations. So I love that you've given me a new frame of reference to go with.
So glad you joined us for Subject to Change. Take care.
Thank you guys so much. We will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. All right, have a great night.